He said that he was a community liaison officer. He said, well, are you Harry the Owl on Twitter? There's been a complaint about some of the views that you've expressed on Twitter. Somebody's complained and said that your place of work is not safe for trans people. And this is when my old policing head kicked in. And he said, I need to check your thinking. And that was the moment. They were the very words he said, I need to check your thinking. We are in the land of cloud cuckoos. My police stalker. I became aware of a police account on Twitter, a trans police officer. I'm going to arrest the cop. And he went, you're not. I went, I am, yeah, I'm going to arrest the sergeant. You leave that tape running because there's something I want to say. You are now under arrest. He said, you can't arrest me, I'm the sergeant. I said, I just f***ing did.
Just quickly, last month I started actually asking you to subscribe because such a small percentage of you do. I didn't know if that would work, but the results are in. Last month, Heretics grew by 50,000 subscribers to pass 300,000. Who knew that all I had to do was ask? Thank you so much, and please keep liking and subscribing because we can grow this channel together and attract even more guests. You've got the maddest story I've ever heard, and we're going to go into that. It is a completely insane story, but first tell me just a little bit about you, because you were a police officer. What's your story?
Right, okay, so yeah, I was a police officer a long time ago. I was a police officer back in the 1800s for about 10 minutes. That's the truth of the matter. Actually, it was back in the 1980s and 90s. It didn't particularly suit me. I didn't like being at the bottom of the pile. I think I would have made an excellent chief constable, but unfortunately you have to be everything else before they're allowed to do that job. Having been a police officer and having family who are currently in the police, the whole notion of the police didn't have the mystique that it has with people members of the public who aren't used to the police. You know, you see a police officer and what you see is the uniform, you recognize the warrant card, you recognize the symbols of power, and you don't see the flesh and blood person inhabiting the uniform. And I know that these flesh and blood people are very, very flawed. They're as they should be. They're like you and I. You know, the police are the public and the public are the police. So when the police did approach me in 2019, I think I was entirely the wrong person to approach because one, I have no particular awe of the police. I respect them, but I'm not in awe of them. And I've also retained a very, very good level of knowledge when it comes to law, criminal law, and the principles behind law. So I was just the wrong guy for them to turn up and pick on in 2019. So that's it, really.
Yeah, take us to that fateful day.
Okay, so I was down at Tesco's car park, having done some shopping for my wife, and I received a phone call from my managing director of the company, and he rang me. He ran the company for me. He rang me and said, "H, we've had the police here." I said, "Oh, right." So naturally, you know, I operated very large machinery, etc. I thought there could be any number of things that could have gone wrong that the police might be wanting to speak to me about. Apart from anything else, you know, it's a dock. An awful lot of drugs come through the dock. People get injured and killed on the dock. We have machinery running around on roads, which are quite dangerous. So there are any number of things that the police might have wanted to speak to me about. Anyway, I rang the police officer back, and it was a chap called PC Gull who introduced himself as being a member of Humberside Police, my old force, actually. And he said that he was a community liaison officer. And I said, "Oh, very, very good. And why do you want to speak to me?" He said, "Well, are you Harry the Owl on Twitter?" And I thought, that's a bit of an odd question. I said, "But yes, I am." He said, "Right, well, there's been a complaint about some of the views that you've expressed on Twitter." I said, "Right, tell me more." He said, "Well, somebody's complained and said that your place of work is not safe for trans people." At which point I laughed. If you know anything at all about Immingham Dock, it's not the go-to place if you want to find sort of trans people. It just isn't.
Sure.
You know, aeroplanes fly over and people look up and peer. It's very, very backward, really. The notion that there would be a quotient of trans people down at Immingham Dock, or in my company in particular, just seemed to me utterly absurd. But nevertheless,
being unsafe as well, just being very unsafe.
Nevertheless, he said that, well, somebody was very concerned because the trans people in my place of work, and at the time I was employing around about 80, 90 people, I think, were unsafe, and therefore that they needed to speak to me. I said, well, has there been a complaint at all from anybody in my work? He said, oh, no, this is a complainant from a different part of the country. I thought, well, that's very, very odd. And I said, well, let me just give you a bit of background. I've been doing this job now for many, many years, and I've not been challenged one single time as an employment tribunal because I've come close to breaking the Equality Act or any of the acts which preceded the Equality Act. In other words, I'm a very, very good employer. He said, well, nevertheless, this person believes that your place is a dangerous place, and that's why I've got to speak to you. And this is when my old policing head kicked in. And I said, okie dokie, so is anything that I've tweeted criminal? And he said, no. I said, right, so why, if nothing that I've said is criminal, why are you ringing me? And he said, I need to check your thinking. And that was the moment. They were the very words he said, I need to check your thinking.
Oh.
And I said, right, let me get this clear. I said, you're a police officer? He said, yes. I said, I've not committed a crime. He said, no, but you're checking my thinking. Yes. I said, have you any idea what that makes you? And he said, no. I said, George Orwell's 1984, it's a dystopian novel, not a police how-to manual. And the reference to that entirely went over his head. So then I said, look, if there's nothing that I've done that's criminal, in your opinion, in your expert policing professional opinion, what is the thing that I've tweeted that is closest to being criminal, that if I'd just gone a little bit further, it would have been criminal? What was the thing that I tweeted which was criminal adjacent? And he said, well, there's 33 tweets here. I said, well, in your opinion, which is the worst one? And he said, you did a limerick. I said, no, I did not do a limerick. He said, no, you retweeted a limerick. I said, so it's not even my limerick then. It's not even I don't recall doing that, but if you say that I've done it, then clearly I've done it. But you're now checking my thinking because I've retweeted somebody else's limerick.
Have they arrested the writer of the limerick?
No, of course not. No. And it wasn't even a limerick. When I eventually, through a series of disclosure, I managed to get hold of the said limerick. It wasn't a limerick. It was a piece of feminist doggerel. It was a feminist verse that said something like, your breasts are made of silicon, your vagina goes nowhere, and we can tell the difference even when you're not there. Your hormones are synthetic. Now let's just cross this bridge. What you have, you stupid man, is male privilege. Boom. So that was it. It wasn't even a limerick. Maybe it identified as limerick, but it most clearly was not a limerick.
You remembered it quite well.
Absolutely. Well, sometimes I remember it, sometimes I don't. But yeah, it just came to me just
repeating it in the bathroom every morning.
This was where it goes from being absurd to utterly sinister and clinically stupid. When we challenged homicide police as to why they felt it necessary to record and to contact me and check my thinking over the retweet of somebody else's feminist limerick or verse, the answer we got back was that this was an example of a non-crime hate incident. It's the first time that I'd ever heard of a non-crime hate incident. And the thing about a non-crime hate incident is there doesn't need to be a crime. And in fact, there doesn't need to be an incident. What there needs to be is the perception by a third party, the victim or anybody else, including a police officer, that what you have said is potentially hateful. In other words, somebody has perceived it to be hateful. And it also says no objective evidence of hate is required. So we are in the land of cloud cuckoos. We are in the land of pure subjectivism, where if somebody feels offended, that's all that it takes for the police to not only record you for non-crime hate incidents, but to, in effect, turn up at your place of work and to challenge you and to tell you that they need to check your thinking. And the rationale for this is as follows. The police say that the recording of a non-crime hate incident is necessary because it is the staging post on a 5-step journey through criminality, through discrimination, through criminality, and the getting off point is genocide. So I was on step 1 of a 5-step journey to genocide.
Is this written down? Like
Yes,
the steps?
yes, absolutely. Which, without what they call necessary intervention, I was on the genocide train, and it's a good job that PC Gull came to visit me, because otherwise I would be the next literal Hitler, going around seeking transvestites to devour. That was literally what they said. Now, it's based upon some very dodgy work of a fellow called Gordon Allport, who was writing in America in the 1950s. And to be fair to Gordon Allport, let's remember America recently come out. It wasn't very long since the end of the Second World War. It wasn't very long since we'd uncovered the absolute horrors of the genocide. And, he's a social psychologist. And I think what he was trying to do, he was making a genuine attempt to see how that had occurred. What was the cycle of violence? Because it doesn't just erupt out of nowhere. It starts with something. And what he thought it started off with was a feeling of hatred. And then that progressed through a series of stages until you finally get Auschwitz. That's all very well and good. But you can't simply transpose in whole a model written in the 1950s by an American sociologist who was studying the causes of genocide, etc., and just drop it down whole and unedited and unnuanced onto modern day policing, because it's very, very different. The notion that me retweeting somebody else's limerick, or in fact the writer writing, that I keep calling it a limerick, but you know what I mean, writing that would somehow lead to genocide. I think it's not only stupid, it's not only insane, but it's utterly, utterly insulting to the victims of actual genocide. The notion that if only we could have stopped Hitler doing hateful painting, or doing hateful rhymes or whatever, then we would have stopped the entire course of World War II. It's just absolutely bizarre. It's lazy thinking.
A failure to understand that censorship by Hitler was such a key part of it as well. I mean, censorship, that's the problem.
I agree. Now, that's how I got involved, because I challenged the entire notion of non-crime hate incidents. And one of the things that we did, because it turned out that this was one thing. This was the most egregious thing that PC Gull could find. But there were others. Eventually, through a direct subject access request, I managed to get the entirety of my offensive material. And it actually took them about 2 to 3 months for them to reveal it. So, that's a long time to be laying awake at night thinking, what the hell did I tweet? What did I do? What did I put? Was I feeling particularly in a bad mood late one night and tweeted something like, if you see a tranny, punch him? I mean, I couldn't imagine that I'd done that, because that's not me. It's never been my opinion.
Could it retweeted by accident?
Yeah, could I have? Yeah, exactly. Could I have retweeted something absolutely insane by accident? What could I have done? And of course, your friends and family are the same, because they're like, well, it all sounds a bit mad, but you must have done something. There's no smoke without fire, Harry. You must have done something. Yeah. The best thing you can do really is get off social media altogether and stop tweeting about such things. Just leave social media behind. But of course, that's what the police want you to do. They're generating a chilling effect to try and drive you and your dangerous opinions out of the social square. And I wasn't about to do that. I just thought, no, I'm not going to do that.
Can I just add to that what you just said about you must have done something? It's one of the most chilling phrases in history. And I've got family in Argentina. In Argentina, when they had the right-wing dictatorship, which was throwing people off of helicopters, drugs into the ocean and things like that, horrible things, the expression went around Argentina, algo habrán hecho, which means they will have done something. And that is one of the most chilling phrases in history. It's when people stop thinking they in a cultish way and just go, well, it's not me. As long as it's not me, he must have done something. But you didn't. I have a really exciting announcement. I've started a new channel, Andrew Gold Investigates. for documentaries. A kind of multilingual Louis Theroux, if you will. The first videos about an abusive exorcist, the UK's most triggered campus, the only country that won't report paedophiles to police, and my time with the crazy baby lady pro-life extremist are the first ones. Go watch them now. The link is in the description and pinned comment. And comment to tell me you came from this, because I need to know if anyone is actually listening.
No, not anything. Anyway, after about 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever, I eventually got the tweets back. And this is when I got incredibly angry, because there was nothing at all that I was embarrassed about having said. Not a thing. I'll give you an example of some things that I tweeted. I'd said Sheffield women know the difference between lads and lasses.
Yeah,
because they do. You know, I grew up in Sheffield. Yorkshire people call a spade. They call a man, and a woman, a woman. They know the difference between a shovel and a spade. It's simple as that. That, the police decided, was an indicator of my genocidal tendencies. There were others. I'd been quite sarcastic. I'd said I was assigned mammal at birth, but I identify as a fish. Don't misspecies me, motherfuckers. And this again was seen as being an indicator that I was genocidal. But then there were some crazy ones as well. For instance, I'm a bit of a fan of musicals. I mean, don't tell anybody that I said that, but you know, I'm a bit of a fan of musicals. And one afternoon, I was alternating between watching Gillette Soccer Saturday and a Sarah Brightman concert on Sky Arts.
They should do a musical of Soccer Saturday.
They should.
What does he say, Jeff? Something amazing, Jeff? Amazing, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a song from that, Sondheim or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I sort of became aware of my own absurdity of switching between, you know, blokey football and Sarah Brightman. So I just took a screenshot of the telly and posted it. And put here I am flicking between Sarah Brightman and Gillette Soccer Saturday, proof positive that I'm genderqueer. I was taking the piss out of myself, but no. This was proof that I was transphobic, and I was on the Auschwitz train heading towards genocide unless the police had their necessary intervention and put a stop to this damnable tweeting.
Oh my God!
So when we challenged Humberside Police, they said that they were following national guidance. And the national guidance they were following was the hate crime guidance published under Theresa May in 2014. And it was that guidance that said that any perceived hate, regardless of objective fact, any perceived hate must be recorded as a non-crime hate instance if it is against certain groups of people. So if it was based on race, ethnicity, sexuality, or gender identity, etc., religion, then that was it. It didn't matter whether there was any objective evidence. It had to be recorded as a non-crime hate incident. And it gets even worse, because the guidance says that any attempt to pass the complaint through a layer of rationality and common sense was a case of secondary hate.
What?
So yes, that's what the guidance said. So if the police applied any common sense, then they too were responsible for a non-crime hate incident, and they were guilty of causing what was known as secondary victimization. Now, I think it's bad enough that the state, via the police, record you for hate. I think that in itself, that mark of Cain, that stamp of disapproval by the state on your character, is bad enough. But it gets worse than that, because there are very, very real world consequences to having a non-crime hate incident against your name. For 6 years, we discovered, for 6 whole years, from the moment you're recorded, the chief constable can disclose on an enhanced DBS check to your employer or a potential employer the recording you have for hate. Now, I've got a copy of my non-crime hate incident, and it's chilling itself, because right at the top of the page it says crime report, not non-crime report. It says crime report. Then it says crime, transphobic hate. Then it says suspect, Harry Miller with all my details. Then it says victim, and then it says nature, and then transgender, hateful, and blah, 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 blah. And it's only in the very small print at the bottom of the page that it says category of crime, non-crime. Now,
God.
Now, we're talking Orwellian doublespeak here.
Yeah.
Now, I'm asking you now, if that lands, if you're looking through a bunch of CVs and that lands on your desk,
Yeah, I won't hire them.
what you're going to do, you're going to file it Route 1 waste paper.
Yeah.
And that is it. That's it.
Yeah, might have done something. You'd think it, wouldn't you? You'd be thinking, "Oh, I must have done." And I've got some other CVs that are pretty good. Maybe I won't go with the one with the mark here. Who knows?
What was the Argentinian phrase again?
Algo habrán hecho. They will have done something.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. Now, I read a very good book about the East Berlin. Prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
And in that book, it gave instances where of one particular girl who was very well qualified for a certain job. I think she was a translator or something, and she would go along to various
everywhere.
Yeah. She would go along for various jobs, and the interviews, she would be highly qualified. The interview would go very, very well.
Yeah.
The potential employer was very excited and would call her back, and that was it. It would go nowhere. And why did it go nowhere? Because the Stasi were disclosing on their DBS checks these non-crime hate incidents. And that was the end of your career. That was the end of your prospects for promotion, etc. So we said that this cannot be right. You cannot have national guidance that is forcing police officers to de facto criminalize people for non-crimes.
Mm-hmm.
The very notion that you can be criminalized for a non-crime is tautological nonsense. It's not possible. There's a clue in the title. Unfortunately, to do that, to challenge national guidance, you have to go to the High Court. So that's what we did. We served the Chief Constable of Humberside with notice for judicial review for following the guidance set out by the College of Policing, and we served the College of Policing for writing the guidance. And so I think it was November 2019, we had it out, judicial review at the High Court down in London. In February the following year, we got our results. We absolutely trounced the Chief Constable of Humberside.
Wow.
In a very, very long written judgment by Mr. Justice Knowles. He likened the actions of the Chief Constable to those of the Stasi, the Checker, and the Gestapo.
Wow.
Yes, that is strong language.
How did you feel?
I felt absolutely delighted. I mean, on page 1, he gets straight into Orwell on page 1 of the ruling. It reads almost like a Supreme Court ruling from America, and it's around about, I don't know, it's hundreds of pages long or hundreds of paragraphs long at any rate. And he notes that the freedom is not worth having if it does not include the right to be offensive. A freedom that does not include the right to be to be offensive is not a freedom worth having, he says. And he says this over and over again.
Can I just say what's so important about your vindication there? Sometimes, I don't know if you feel this way as well, sometimes you might feel like a bit of a nutter, because in all the movies and things, it's the guy going, oh, bloody, it's Orwellian. And you say, oh, God, am I going nuts? When you've got a judge who's written this and is actually saying, the police has gone Orwellian, that must have been a real vindication for you.
It was fantastic. You know, he quotes at length on liberty. He quotes at length Orwell.
Wow.
He likens the police not just to the three worst recent police forces in European history: the Stasi, the Checker, and the Gestapo. Now, being compared to any one of those three would be bad enough, but being called to all three, likened to all three, should have been devastating. What was very bizarre. Oh, they also said that the complainant, and it says this in the ruling, they were from the outer edges of rationality. In other words, they were a nutter. That's English speak for a complete nutter, and the police should have not given them any truck whatsoever. It's as simple as that. What was disturbing about that particular ruling is that they said that the police following the guidance was unlawful, but the guidance itself was lawful.
Oh.
I thought, well, that can't be right. There was no suggestion by the College of Policing that the Chief Constable of Humberside hadn't followed it correctly, that he'd misapplied it, misunderstood it. You couldn't get a paper between the College of Policing and the Chief Constable of Humberside. They were like that, absolutely. So quite how the judge managed to say that the guidance was sound, but following the guidance to the letter was made you like the Stasi. We found that to be just bizarre. I think what he was doing, to be fair, I think he was trying to give me a massive win, a huge, headline grabbing win when it came to homicide, but he didn't quite dare condemn the national government guidance. I think that's what happened. So we appealed. We went to the Court of Appeal the following year, and we sat before three, I think it was the Queen's Bench Division, three top judges, and eventually they ruled that the guidance itself was in fact unlawful. And as a result of that, the guidance was overturned. I had a meeting with Suella Braverman. Suella Braverman published new statutory guidance around non-crime hate incidents. A few months later, the College of Policing got into line and published new guidance about non-crime hate incidents, which I was able to read before it was published. I agreed with it entirely. I thought it was very, very good guidance. I rubber stamped it. This is great. We're happy. Toby Young from the Free Speech Union and I, when we both read it, we were both in raptures because it gave us everything that we'd wanted, everything that we'd asked for, like super victory. So at that point, that should be it over. That should be my job done. I should be able to retire and go back to cycling, watching Netflix, or doing whatever I wanted to
Musicals.
do. Musicals, yes. Except that the police haven't had the memo.
Oh, no.
The police have not had the memo, and the police have continued to record non-crime hate incidents at a rate of around about 65 per week.
Wow.
Right the way through. This is the tragedy, and it's not been helped by following the summer of riots that we had, where the new government, Keir Starmer and his Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, came out and said that they wanted to reverse the previous government's policy of not recording non-crime hate incidents, and they wanted more non-crime hate incidents. Now, Yvette Cooper's wrong on a couple of points there. The first point is it was not a government policy. It was settled by a court of law, by the Court of Appeal, no less. So it's not within her purview to simply announce that she's going to reverse it, because whilst you may be able to reverse government policy, you can't just simply march in with your bother boots and say, I'm reversing a high court of appeal ruling.
Authoritarian.
And entirely wrong. If somebody who's supposed to, it's her job, isn't it, as the Home Secretary, to make sure the law is upheld. At the very least, we want her to be upholding it herself. We want her not to be encouraging the police to operate unlawfully over a matter that was settled at the Court of Appeal. So that's one of the issues that we have. The other issue is that DEI is so embedded within police forces that they simply see transphobia and hate everywhere. And they've remained very, very motivated to record it wherever they see it or where anybody else sees it. And even though it's now unlawful to do that, unless somebody challenges them on an instance by instance basis, it makes no difference. So we've got the law, which is very, very clear. We've got the government who are trying to muddy the waters of the law. And we've got police forces who are so entrenched in DEI training that the law is making no practical difference whatsoever. This time last year, I infiltrated some hate crime guidance, hate crime training day at Staffordshire Police Headquarters. They put out a call for local hate crime champions, local hate crime reporters, and they put on a training day for it. So I applied, and they obviously hadn't looked at my application very, very, very hard because they let me in. So I sat on this training day, and it became absolutely clear. This is Staffordshire Police Headquarters, that they had no concept of what a hate crime was. They couldn't define what a hate crime was. They had no idea of the definition of a non-crime hate incident as it should be defined, as opposed to they were still working on the old definition. And then in the afternoon, we had this bizarre instance where we were told that there, 157 different types of unconscious bias. I don't know where they got that number from, but 157 types of unconscious bias. This was the police. Yeah, on the training day, and that all of them were evil. All of them, all unconscious bias was wrong. I couldn't take it anymore, so I put my hand up and said, "Well, I'm just going to give you an example because surely there must be some instances where unconscious bias is a good thing, and I'll give you the instance. There's a woman walking." It's nighttime. She's walking down a street and she hears footsteps behind her. And her unconscious bias tells her that they are not the footsteps of a woman, they're the footsteps of a man. And on the basis of that, she feels slightly vulnerable. And so she takes evasive action to get out of the way. I said, surely that is an instance of unconscious bias working in favor of us. And you know what I was told? No, that woman was behaving the same as a racist by assuming that the footsteps of a man were dangerous.
Surely sexist, not.
Yeah, no, but they said no. This is akin to racism. It's akin to racism. That's what they said.
So they're being racist because they're in their head. They can only imagine a black guy. Is that what it is? It's like The Office or something.
Exactly, absolutely. And I said this is absolutely ridiculous. How can that possibly be the case?
Wow.
And then we had my cover was finally broken.
I should say.
No, they made the mistake of playing a rap from some black young rap artist,
right?
And he was rapping and he was saying that the what was it? The violence. That was it. There's violence in the silence. There's violence in the silence. So it was just this long, crazy rap, and most people around the table they're all like this. Oh wow! And there was this sort of respectful silence afterwards. Then they went around the trainer went around and said, "Oh, what did you think?" And it was going, "Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant." And they said, "Harry, what do you think?" I said, "You really want to know?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "It was absolute unadulterated shite, and I don't think that it's worthy of a training course, and certainly it's entirely unworthy of a so-called training course put on by at police headquarters in Staffordshire. You are talking absolute bollocks."
It's like Ricky Gervais, isn't it? This stuff?
I said the entire day has been absolute bollocks. So at that point, my cover was blown.
Did you see that? Did you see that Ricky Gervais Equality Street? He made a song called Equality Street.
Absolutely,
it was, I suppose, a parody of that exact kind of bureaucratic nonsense. Did you also see? I was thinking while you were speaking about the Firewoman in America. There was an American Firewoman. She's sort of an overweight woman, and she was saying, "Well, look, of course, I wouldn't be able to pick your husband up and take him out of the house, but he shouldn't have got himself in that place in the first place." It's like you're a firewoman. Well, that's the DEI hire.
I mean, you don't have to look any further than Kamala Harris to see how bad a DEI hire is, do you? Yeah. That woman, bless her heart, utterly useless. Yeah. I mean, the Democrats knew she was useless. Everybody knew she was useless. She was a DEI hire. I mean, she's probably a very good lawyer or what have you, but the president of the United States needs to be a little bit sharper than she was.
Well, hang on. To be fair, though, we just had a white man who was even less sharp.
When he choice is a guy who is clearly suffering from some form of Alzheimer's disease,
which is sad, actually.
Yeah, it's incredibly sad because I'm no great admirer of Joe Biden, but he's been in public service for many decades, and I don't suppose he's that much more corrupt than anybody else out there. And he needs to be sitting around a dinner table, telling stories about what he's done, not sitting there with access to the bloody nuclear button. And it was elder abuse, as simple as that. Elder abuse.
I want to hear from you about this stalker.
Oh, my stalker, my police stalker.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was I think it was early 2022. I became aware of a police account on Twitter from somebody called Lindsay Watson, who identified themselves as a trans police officer, and they were calling the LGB Alliance terrorists. Now, I don't know if you've met the LGB Alliance, and I know Bev and Kate quite well, and they're about as far removed from the Baader-Meinhof gang as it's humanly possible to be. They're a pair of elderly socialists. They're not They're not violent. The notion that the LGB Alliance is a terrorist organisation is nuts. So I challenged Lindsay Watson on Twitter at the time, but I did more than that. He'd put on his LinkedIn profile where he lived, and I identified it as being in Leicestershire. So I wrote to West Midlands Police, Nottinghamshire Police, and Leicestershire Police, and said, "Do you have a police constable, serving police officer named Lindsay Watson?" Now, West Midlands and Nottinghamshire came back within 12 hours and said, nobody of that name on our force, and we've tried every iteration of the name in case you got the spelling wrong. So that's really great service. Leicestershire Police, on the other hand, were not quite so swift off the mark. It took them, I think, 7 weeks to finally get back to me. They came back and said, the computer's broken, we don't know. They came back to me and said, oh, the person who does know is off duty. Then they said, oh, somebody's off sick, so we still don't know. Now, I know how police computers work. The second you start typing in LY, it will come with all the options. So what they were doing, they were hiding him. But eventually they said, yes, it is, in fact, PC Lindsay Watson. So I put a complaint in. And what happened was that Lindsay Watson very quickly disappeared, and a new account appeared. But Lindsay Watson has got these certain verbal tics, very, very particular verbal tics. So it became quite obvious that the new account was him. Absolutely. No doubt about it at all. And at this point, his ire was turned directly upon me, and it was bad. And over the space of 18 months, he sent something like 4,000 messages at me or referencing
4,000?
me. Yeah. With over 850 directly at me.
As in a direct message?
No,
or
but directly
post with
Harry Miller. Yeah, with Harry, my name or what have you. That's a lot. That's a lot. Okay. But not only that, he reported me to every chief constable in the country, to every PCC in the country. He reported me to the anti-terrorist unit, every anti-terrorist unit in the country. He said that he had evidence that I had got my high court victory, court of appeal victory through perjury, and that he was working with the CPS to develop a file, and very shortly my Miller ruling was about to be overturned. He said that he had evidence that when I was working with Lawrence Fox as the chairman of Reclaim, that I was cooking the books and fiddling the books, and that I was bribing people, and that he had a file attached to that. And
defamation.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And then he'd taken. I got this
Tattoo.
Last tattoo. The wrong guy. And the reason I got the wrong guy was because Toby Young wrote a headline after my High Court victory and said they picked on the wrong guy. So I got that. So he'd seen a photograph of that, and he turned it to the guy that beats women.
You should have a pic. Some sort of pic that's picked on the wrong guy. You can add a sort of I don't know.
I should have. Yeah, I should. I'll maybe think about that.
You can still do that.
Yeah, I could. Yeah,
that's smart, isn't it?
I'll talk to my wife about it. Yeah. So is that there were loads of memes about the guy that punches women and all this sort of stuff. And then absolutely completely bizarrely, he decided he tweeted that he put out that I was being investigated along with the then Home Secretary Suella Braverman, because she and I were running a terrorist organisation, and that Suella Braverman and I were responsible for the bombing of a gay club in Colorado.
And you weren't.
We were. Well, I wasn't. I can't speak for Suella.
Yeah.
But if she did that, she didn't tell me she was doing it. So I'm pretty certain that it had got nothing to do with me. But if there was an atrocity, then it was my fault. I was behind the Breonna Gay murders. I was behind everything. I was running a secret terrorist cell, and he was about to have me exposed.
Jeez.
So eventually. And again, we talk about two-tier policing. Because I'm an ex-police officer, I know how to prepare evidence. I prepared the best evidence file imaginable for my local police force, Lincolnshire Police. I handed it in. I said, it's definitely him. They arrested him. They let him go. They put the file out to the CPS. They were going to do him for stalking, not just harassment, but stalking, which is quite a very serious charge. He was back on duty the following day at Leicestershire, not suspended, not even for a day. And the CPS, having looked at the evidence, decided that it was just a bit of banter and they weren't going to prosecute him, which is absolutely nuts, but that's the Crown Prosecution Service for you. However, Once all the criminal proceedings were out the way, he did have to face the music in terms of his own forced disciplinary, and he was taken to a full disciplinary with a chief constable, and he was summarily dismissed. And not only that, but placed on a barred list, which means he can never work in law enforcement or emergency services again. And I believe that he had his pension taken off him as well. He was treated very, very seriously. Thank God, for that. And as far as I was concerned, that was pretty much the end of it. I wrote a piece for the Critic last May about it because there'd been the baby reindeer thing on Netflix. So I thought, oh, yeah, I've had a stalker. I'll write about it. And it was quite a gentle piece actually, because I felt like I was suffering a little bit from Stockholm syndrome, and I was sort of worrying that I've lost this guy his job, and you know, was he all right? And it's a strange thing to think about your stalker, but nevertheless, I was, and I recognised it from the Netflix thing. So anyway, I wrote this thing and then forgot all about it. And then in October of last year, I just got back from visiting friends in New Mexico, and I was mowing my daughter's lawn, and I got a phone call, and it was Lincolnshire Police, Detective Sergeant Singh, I think his name was. And he started talking to me about Lindsay Watson. Now, naturally, I assume, because I'm very aware that he's continued to go at people, you know, like a complete utter lunatic. So I thought, oh, they're ringing me up because, you know, they want my expert advice, and they maybe want me to give a witness statement. And so I was chatting away quite cordially. And then the detective sergeant said, so on that basis, we'd like to invite you in for a voluntary interview. And I went, what? I said, am I the suspect? And he said, well, yeah, there's been a complaint by Lindsay Watson, and you need to come in. I said, right. I said, so what are the consequences of me not coming in? I said, for instance, are you going to arrest me if I don't come in voluntarily? And he said, well, it would be a consideration. I said, right. So to be clear then, this is not a voluntary interview. This is a interview under coercion, because you've made it very clear that if I say no, that you retain the possibility of arrest. He said, well, I don't like to put it like that. I said, well, that's the way it is, whether you like to put it like that or not. That's the way it is. I said, right, I'm coming in now. He said, no, you can't come in now. I'm off duty shortly. I said, well, I'll come in tomorrow. He said, no, tomorrow.
So this is on your mind now.
I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
He said, I'll send you some dates. I said, all right, then. Send me some dates. So it was 6 weeks hence, the earliest.
So you're going through this for 6 weeks, having to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I'd done absolutely nothing wrong, nothing at all.
It's still stressful.
But still, for the average person who's not used to working with this bullshit, it's destructive, absolutely
I'd be in
destructive.
bits.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got a big like 6'5" inch mate who said exactly the same thing. He said, God, if they'd said that to me, mate, I'd be in absolute bits. I'd need a psychiatrist.
Well, they've got low ceilings in there or something.
Yeah, exactly. So eventually I thought, this is just bullshit. This is absolute bullshit. So I think, what could I possibly have said? And I couldn't think of anything that I'd said. I asked my partner in Fair Cop, Sarah Phillimore, I said, just look through the account. Is there anything that I've said that you think bit dodgy that? She said, I'll check, but no, because if you'd said something dodgy, I would have pulled you up at the time. Right, that's what I think. So we had no idea what it was, but I satisfied myself that I'd done nothing. So I thought, right, I'm going to take my mate, Elliot Hammer, with me. He's a solicitor in London.
Oh, yeah, I know Elliot.
Yeah, you know Elliot, right? Yeah. So he's not a criminal law solicitor, but he's a solicitor, and he's a mate.
Yeah.
So I had a word with him. I said, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go down. I'm going to get the guy to repeat the threat that if I wasn't there voluntarily, that he had said he may arrest me. I said, I'm going to listen to the evidence. And then I said, if the evidence is, as I think it is, complete and utter bullshit, I'm going to arrest the fucking cop. And he went, you're not. And I went, I am, yeah, I'm going to arrest the sergeant. I said, I know exactly the legislation I'm going to use. I'm going to use the 1997 Protection from Harassment Act, Section 2, which is indictable, where there is a threat of harassment with a threat of violence. My argument is, or more than one threat of violence. My argument is that the threat of arrest is a threat of violence, because it is. I'm going to get him to repeat it during the interviews. Then we've got the 2 instances, and then I'm going to arrest the fucker. So he said, okie dokie, now let's go do it. So he went down to the police station, first things first, the sergeant met me and put out his hand, and I said, "We're not here as friends, mate. I ain't shaking your hand." I said, "I'm here under coercion." He said, "All right, if that's the way you want to play it." I said, "Right, before we start, do you agree with me that you said that you would consider arresting me if I refuse to be at this interview?" And he said, "Well," I said, "I'll read back the notes word for word that I wrote after our conversation." He said, "Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I don't intend to, but I did. Yeah, right." Then we start the interview, and it turns out I was being investigated under the new online safety bill. I think it was the online safety bill. Yeah, the new online safety bill, Section 179. And Section 179 is the spreading of false information. So if an individual maliciously spreads false information about another person, which causes them serious psychological harm, then you're guilty of an offence. I said, "So what is it that what's the evidence?" And he said, "Right, on the 27th of October 2023, Fair Cop published a statement that said this: Statement re the dismissal of PC Lindsay Watson from Leicestershire Police." And then underneath that, there's a statement about how he was thrown out. I said, "Yeah, that's all factually correct." He said, "No, that's you pretending to be Leicestershire Police." I said, "What?" It says here, statement read the dismissal of PC Lindsay Watson from Leicestershire Police. That's you pretending to be Leicestershire Police. I said, "Are you on drugs, pal? This is a statement under Fair Cop. Read the dismissal of Lindsay Watson from Leicestershire Police. Lindsay Watson was dismissed from Leicestershire Police, and this is our statement regarding that dismissal from Leicestershire Police." Well, I read it as though you're pretending to be the chief constable.
Oh, you understood the from to
Yes,
be
yeah. This
from.
is yeah. That I'm pretending to be Leicestershire Police, and it's on that basis that I'd caused Lindsay Watson deep psychological harm, and it was on that basis that I was under threat of arrest. And I said, "You are on drugs, mate, because that is a statement from Fair Cop about the dismissal of Lindsay Watson from Leicestershire Police. It's plain fucking English." I said, "The other thing is, the content of the statement is all factually 100% correct. So even if I was pretending, it still can't be harmful, because," I said, "here's the genuine statement from Leicestershire Police, and look at mine. Mine's nicer than theirs." And they said, "Well, that's not the only one." Oh, and the other thing he said, I said, "What date was that?" He said, "Oh, that was the 27th of October, 2023. And he said, "Right, what date did the Online Safety Act come into force?" He said, "The 26th of October, 2023. And we said, "Did it? Are you sure it wasn't the 31st of January, 2024? And he went, "No, I've checked." Right, okay, right, carry on then. He said, "Right, you've written a piece for the Critic." I said, "Yeah, my police stalker." He said, "In it, you call Lindsay Watson he." I said, "That's because he was a he." "Well, he thinks that he's a she." And yeah, he says that she's a she. I said, "Hold on a minute. When I came here this afternoon, you, Mr. Police Officer, you referred to him as a he. Well, and I said, you also dead named him. You also used his dead name of Alex Horwood." I said, "I didn't do that." I said, "Well, he thinks that he's a she." I said, "You're doing it again. You're calling him a he." "Well, sorry, she thinks that she's a she, and you think they're. So this is the Online Safety Act."
Can we keep his real name in this video? Is that
of course.
doxing or something?
No, is it? Well, so again, so we just laughed, and then we just said, "Right, is that all you've got?" And he said, "Well, yeah, for now." He said, "Right, I'm going to turn the tape off." I said, "No, you just leave that tape running 1 minute."
Bloody hell! Was he like getting his knuckle dusters on?
No. He just said, no. He said, "Right, that's the end of the interview."
Okay.
We give him a right old going over, calling him a fucking idiot.
I feel sorry for him now.
No, I don't.
In over his head.
He reached over and said, "Right, I'm going to end the interview. I'm now going to turn off the tape." And I said, "No, you leave that tape running because there's something I want to say." He said, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Right, I am now enacting my powers under pace, where any person may arrest any other person who is guilty or in the process of committing an indictable offence. I am accusing you right this second of committing the indictable offence of Section 2, Section 1, so the 1997 Protection from Harassment Act. You are now under arrest. He said, you can't do that. I said, I just did. You're arrested. I said, take me to the custody sergeant. So for processing. He said, I'm not taking you anywhere into the police station. I said, well, you don't have a choice, mate, because you're under arrest. He said, you can't arrest me. I'm the sergeant. I said, you're under arrest. You are under arrest. I have arrested you. So then we got some more, 4 police officers turned up.
Who's going to play you in the movie?
I know. And they de-arrested him and told him to go and hide in the police station.
My God. Did you have handcuffs?
I didn't have handcuffs. I didn't touch him, actually. I never touched him. I just said, you are under arrest.
And so you can, so I can arrest someone.
Yes, any person may arrest any other person under the PACE, providing they are in the process of committing an indictable offence. That means an offence that can be tried at Crown Court. So you can't do it for minor things, but that's why I was very insistent on getting these two threats of arrest. Because let's face it, an arrest or a threat of arrest is a threat of violence.
Yeah.
Because when they arrest you, they put you in cuffs, they take away your freedom, they throw you in a cell, you have limited access to anything or anybody. Your movement is entirely restricted. In all respects, it's a legalized kidnapping, is what it is. It's a legalized abduction. But more than that, before they let you out, they will physically take your fingerprints and they will take your DNA. And if you say, I'm not going to give it voluntarily, what they will do is they will hold you down and they will take it by force.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, the threat of arrest is something to be taken very, very serious. It is implied within it a threat of violence. And that's why I arrested the guy. Now, Elliot and I had looked it up afterwards and sort of asked Google or whatever, how many how many police officers have been arrested by the member of the public in a police station? It came back absolutely 0. So it was a world first for Harry Miller there.
I think this is a movie. I think Jim Broadbent would play you. Do you think?
Jim Broadbent?
Yeah.
Jim Broadbent?
What's wrong with Jim Broadbent?
Jim Broadbent doesn't play people who are as devastatingly handsome as I am. So
there is that.
That's like,
he'd have to get a face, but he's got there's an accent, isn't there? Where's his accent from? Don't know.
Yeah, he's a Lincolnshire lad.
Is he?
Yeah, Jim
that's
Broadbent.
what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it.
Yeah, you're right on that. You're right on that, but you're wrong on looks because
no,
I'm way better looking. Way better looking than that.
Yeah, you're even better looking than that.
Even better looking than that.
But he also does play roles because there was that one about not paying the TV license.
Yeah.
He does play ones where he's going, no, I'm not having it.
Yeah, he does. He knows. He's an outstanding actor. But
should we call him up?
My pride. I want somebody who's got the relative hunkiness and good looking, handsomeness. I mean, nobody goes to bed fantasizing about being married to Jim Broadbent, do they?
So what would it be? Colin Firth or something? Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. Now we're talking.
There we go.
Now we're talking. If you find a blonde, blonde. By the way, this is slate blonde, not grey. I'm just saying.
For anybody listening, Harry has a long head of blonde hair.
Exactly. Yeah. Jim bloody Broadbent. I can't believe it's
the accent, isn't it? It's the accent and the roles he plays.
Yeah.
He plays those roles, sort of fighting against.
You're doing really well at digging yourself out of this hole, mate. Yeah.
Well, he's a bit older now, isn't he, Jim?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But 10, 20 years ago, I don't know. So that's all completely mad. And so this trans person, has he left you alone now?
Every now and again he tweets out, Harry Miller's going to. We're preparing a file and this sort of stuff. But he's just a sad loser. I mean, one of my big regrets is that I didn't sue him for defamation. But I think I just felt too sorry for the poor sad sack, really. And I kind of thought, well, I'm not in this for money. I've never been in it for money. I believe in punching up, not punching down. And punching him would most definitely be punching down. So it sort of goes against my nature, really. I like to be the underdog in a fight. I like whoever I'm fighting to be way bigger than me, and I prefer it if they think that I stand no chance because I'm just a local stupid fascist idiot.
You almost want to win the defamation case, then give him his money back and go, look, I've taught you a lesson, all right?
That's kind of, yeah, absolutely. That would have been a good idea, actually.
Mm.
Win the defamation case and then just say, forget it. I don't need your bloody money, you idiot. Just learn your lesson.
What a move that would be as well, giving his money back. Like, actually take it and then give it back the next day and go, have it back, but stop with this defamation, mate.
Yeah. I suppose I could have done that. But the thing about defamation is it's got a very strict 1 year, 1 year time limit on it. That's it. So, hey ho. What I should have done homicide constabulary for defamation back in the day. But I was so focused on the judicial review, that sort of aspect of it, because I would have taken their money and not given it back.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Well, that's different.
I would have spent it.
Yeah. Upgrade my studio. You would have done.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have done. Yeah.
So I want to just get your thoughts quickly on which everyone's talking about the grooming scandals at the moment. Have your experience with the police? Is it actually feasible that police have been looking the wrong way with regards to Muslim grooming gangs in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is the hate crime legislation or the guidance, sorry, is such that if you use the term Muslim grooming gang, then anybody at all can turn around and say, you have just committed a non-crime hate incident.
Just for that, saying Muslim grooming gang?
Yes, 100%.
I've said it 100 times, recorded.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't get any ideas, people.
But watching. you just associating, because remember, to record a non-crime, it's all about perception. There doesn't need to be any objective evidence to support the claim. It's all about perception. That's the reason why. And that's why they've done this ridiculous thing of calling it Asian grooming gangs. Hold on a minute. So you're quite happy to demonize several billion people when you know, and I know, we all know that it's a certain sector of, by and large, Pakistani Muslim men who are committing this. But no, we can't call it that. We've got to call it Asians, which means it could be somebody from China or Singapore. Or Russia.
It's not even fair. It's not fair on Muslims of just not Pakistani origin either. Really, this is
no. It's not fair. I mean, my very good friend Hardeep Singh. It's not fair on.
Is he Muslim?
No, he's Sikh. Yeah, he's Sikh. Yeah. It's not fair on him because he's. Well,
they're pissed off. The Sikhs are pissed off.
Oh,
the Hindus are pissed off.
They're extremely pissed off because we all know now. There's an old Chinese proverb that says the beginning of wisdom is to call a thing by its proper name. And we will not solve this until we call it what it is. And this is a imported, maybe not this generation, but 2 or 3 generations. It's an imported problem, and it's based on the mindset of Pakistani Muslim men and their view of women in general, and in particular, Kafir women, white women, who they consider to be simply meat. It's as simple as that. As Jack Straw said, these men view these women simply as meat. Now, we have to start acknowledging the problem and calling the problem what it is. In policing, you narrow things down, don't widen them up. You're all the time trying to narrow things down so you've got a particular group to focus on. We know who it is. We know who's doing this. And that's why I do not understand. Well, I do understand. I don't agree with what Keir Starmer, and to be fair, what the previous Tory government did, which was to turn a blind eye to it, to shut their ears willingly to it for fear of being called Islamophobic. I don't give a shit about being called Islamophobic. I'm a Christian, and if you're afraid of Christians for whatever reason, fine. I don't care. I absolutely do not care.
Be Christophobic.
Yeah, be Christophobic if you like. Yeah. Insult Jesus all you like. I don't care. If it's a good joke, I'll have a laugh with you. Yeah. Seriously, I think the whole thing is nonsense, because what's happened with the Equality Act, we've somehow gone from protecting individuals who belong to a group to protecting the identity of the group itself and to protecting the religion of the group itself.
It's flipped on its head, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So there's been an anthropomorphism, if you like, from the protection of the individual to protection of the ideology. We've anthropomorphized the ideology via proxy. So if I insult your God, then it's akin to insulting you. And then the claim is that the Equality Act protects me from that. No. Insulting your God insulting your ideology, insulting your culture, insulting your religion is not insulting you. I can absolutely loathe the notion of Catholic priests, and I can associate them with pedophiles every day of my life. That does not mean to say that I'm going to hate every Catholic, or that I'm going to assume that every Catholic is a pedo or pedo enabler, because I know it's not the case.
And there are, I mean, all high control groups like that, they have their own sort of laws. They don't often, I mean, that does happen in Catholicism. It happens in Hasidic Judaism. That's with children, those kinds of things. It does happen. And you'd like to think the communities would call it out. And it doesn't seem to be happening in this instance. The only place where I'm going, well, I don't know now, because I keep hearing conflicting reports, because some people are saying the rate of British Pakistani grooming gangs is far exceeds anything pro rata. And other people are saying, well, hang on, no, actually, there's so many white versions of this in Cornwall and certain places like that. So I don't know. I mean, what?
That's what you're But again, I just very quickly saw a Substack that Paul Embry had done.
Yes.
And he was today, and I didn't read it fully, but I saw the headline. And he was saying this argument is stupid. It's like saying we can't talk about the mafia because there are other organized crime gangs around the world, and therefore it's unfair and discriminatory to talk about the mafia. Well, that's just a bullshit argument. There may be grooming. I'm sure there are grooming gangs down in Devon and Cornwall. I'm sure there are Anglican grooming gangs. Well, we know there are, absolutely. But this is about one particular type of grooming gang, which is Muslim Pakistani men grooming gang preying on vulnerable young women.
But I can see why they're pissed off, like some people from that community, because they're going, well, why aren't people like you and me going like calling out the Cornwall ones? Why aren't we focusing on any of that at all? I can see them. I'm just trying to say I can see their point as well.
No, I agree. But what they need to do, they need to have voices who will champion them. Just because you're championing one thing doesn't mean you've got to champion everything. That's it. You know, I have people all the time who say, great what you're doing with the police, Harry, but when are you going to turn your attention to the NHS or to the scandal within pharmacy? I'm like, hold on, mate.
Yeah.
If you think there's a problem there, you go do that, because I'm talking about this. And we mustn't do this whataboutery thing, I don't think. We know, and we've known for a long, long time, that there is a severe problem about Muslim, Asian, Pakistani grooming gangs. We know that the victims are some of the most vulnerable in society. We know that this is based on racism. Not reverse racism, but racism. When a Pakistani looks at a white woman on the basis that she is white and says, you're fair game for raping, that's not reverse racism, that's racism. It's just straight up racism. So let's deal with the problems as we find them. And let's not do this, well, what about them over there? What about them over there? Okay, if somebody needs an inquiry about that, go do that. If that needs sorting, then get somebody to do that. But right now, what we're focusing on is this. We're focusing on this. And it's about time we did, because what's gone on, I mean, it's plainly obvious to me that politicians have turned a blind eye to this because they didn't want to lose votes by offending their constituents.
I think that's the issue, isn't it?
That is plainly the issue. The other problem that we've got is that is with Keir Starmer. And I think Kemi Badenoch was correct when she said what we need is you to be a leader, not a lawyer, in PMQs the other day. I think Keir Starmer is at his heart, he is a prosecutor. He is a prosecutor. He was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service for good reason. You know, he's a very, very capable prosecutor. Now, the thing with prosecution is it's very adversarial. You're not looking for common ground. You are looking to take on the other side. And the first thing that you have to do is establish two things. You've got to establish guilty action and the guilty mindset. Now, when we look at how he dealt with the riots last summer, he was very, very quick to say what the mindset was, that it was a far-right, hateful mindset. And therefore, the actions that occurred were criminal. And he was very encouraging of the criminal justice system to go all out at them, fast track them through the courts, 2 years for shouting at a police dog, all that kind of stuff. And this is led by Keir Starmer because his mindset is that of a prosecutor, where there is no grey area. It's not about reaching across the aisle and finding common ground. It's about, I'm on this side, you're on that side. I'm now going to prove that you have got a guilty mind, the mens rea, and the guilty action, the actus rea. Therefore, you are a criminal. It's my job, my nature to do that. You contrast that with how he viewed the riots in Bristol, the BLM riots in Bristol a few years ago. To be fair, he did condemn them as criminal. He said it's not the right way to do, but he showed a huge amount of sympathy for their mindset. In other words, he said that their mens rea, their mind was right. The actions were wrong, but the mindset was right. They were doing it for the right reasons. Therefore, it would not have met the criminal threshold.
Yeah,
because if for the criminal, the definition of a crime is guilty mind plus guilty action minus a defense. But when it comes to anything that is remotely right wing or anything that challenges him, he calls it right wing. He equates that with mens rea. He equates that with the guilty mindset, and he then interprets every action that comes out of that as being the action of far right nutters who are Tommy lovers and who need locking up because, and this brings it full circle, left unchecked, we will be on that train to the new genocide.
I've got another question for you, but first, where can people follow you and find out about you?
Okay, so you need to you find us on X at We Are Fair Cop. That's the main account, and then I don't tweet that often, but at Harry the Owl 101.
Okay, and who's a heretic you admire?
Well, I've got two actually.
Go on.
And they are Jesus Christ and Johnny Rotten. I think, and for similar reasons, both are lovers of truth. Both pissed off the religious and secular authorities, and I love them both equally.
That's a great answer. People, please go follow Harry Miller. Not too much though, because all the stalking and everything. But go follow him on Twitter and all those things. Fair Cop will have a link down below. Keep watching this channel. Hit that like button.